All right. There we are, everybody. Whoever's here, whoever isn't. Today we've got John from John's Longbox. And you'll forgive me, John, I'm not quite sure of your full name. I had it on your book and I don't remember.
Well, it's John Boer, but
Yeah,
my channel on YouTube is John's Longbox.
of course. And last time I saw you, had a neck brace, man. How are you feeling?
Oh wow, yeah, I. For people who don't know, July 17th, I was driving home from work, and it was super hot. I don't know about you. I'm a construction worker, so I'm out
Mm-hmm.
sweating, and it was just super hot, super humid, and I just all I did I had a cup of coffee for before work, and then a coffee break. I literally had a cup of coffee, and I was just like, I didn't drink anything, and I didn't eat anything, and I was driving home, and all of a sudden I just got this tunnel vision that was
Oof.
so I knew something was happening. I pulled over on an exit, and then I literally passed out and right into a tree and broke my full neck. You know,
Oh, God, man. That's
so
not fun at all.
4 months in a neck brace. 4 months out of work.
Oof. That's not
Yeah.
fun at all. Did you at least get any kind of workers' comp, anything like that?
I got uh dis- disability, which was like
Yeah.
nothing. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was like nothing. And at the same time, I had a campaign active, and like I'm getting like $200 a week. And I'm looking at $7,000 in my
Mm-hmm.
account from my comic book, and I'm like, I got to pay the mortgage. It was real tempting to. I could have messed everything up, but I had some willpower, and I, you know,
Oh yeah,
hit,
man. And
you know,
that's a lot of willpower because I mean, we've seen in the past people, even if it's a legit medical thing, man, that money goes somewhere. People don't get their books or something.
I gotta say, like at night, I was just like, people will understand. People, and then like the next, I can't do it. I can't do it. Can't
Yeah,
do it.
you don't come back from that.
Yeah, that would have been the end of
Oh,
it. That would have been the end of it. Yeah. So I had my neck brace off. My neck is still broken, believe it or not, but it's
oof.
healing really well. I go for MRIs periodically, and the doctor updates me. I mean, it's good enough to go back to work, but I just got to be careful. You know,
Yeah.
it was shattered into pieces, the second vertebrae.
Oh man, you're lucky to be walking then.
That's what my doctor said. She walked in, she turned around to point to me. She goes, "You're lucky to be alive." I was like, "Oh," because I was taking it like I'm not in pain. So how bad could it be? If your neck's broken, you're supposed to be yelling and screaming and rolling around on the floor. You know, but it didn't hurt. It just didn't hurt. But and then I had the neck brace, so I didn't know if I lost mobility because the neck
Yeah.
brace makes you stiff. And then when I took the neck brace off, I was like a bobblehead because I
Oh, yeah,
guess
atrophy and all that. Yeah.
that was freaky. I was like sitting in my chair reading comic books, literally like this. You know, but
Well, and using that as a segue, you have one of the most impressive comic book collections I've ever seen.
oh, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you used to own a store by any chance, or?
Nope, I'm just a lunatic. I'm just an absolute lunatic who likes to collect comics. Uh, I'm getting a picture whenever anybody mentions my comic book collection. I gotta show this.
All right.
I gotta show this picture. Where is it? There we go. So whenever you want,
Sure. Let me throw that up there.
that's my
I
comic.
saw that.
Yeah, that's my comic book room behind me. It's when this picture was taken, I had 55,000 comics, but this picture was taken 2 years ago. So I don't. I obviously have more by now, but I don't know how much more. And right behind where I stand, there's another shelf of 18 long boxes of comics I haven't read yet. So that's the kind of lunatic I am. So
Well,
like,
man, what started this for you?
ah, good question. There was always, when you're my age, I'm 56. So
Mm-hmm.
like, I tell people I started collecting comics in 1974, which is me collecting comics. But even before that, there was comics were everywhere back then. I have two older sisters. I have two older brothers. So there was always Archie, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, Batman, and then my brother's friends would be like, hey, he likes comics. So there was always comic books around.
Yeah.
And I just liked them. They were fun. They were interesting, but I literally couldn't read. In third grade, I was in the bad reading group. I couldn't read comics. And then, you know, my friends were just sitting around reading comics, and I was just looking at pictures of comics. Marvel was really good. You could get the gist of the story, by even if you didn't read. But like, I didn't know characters' names and secret identities, so I just wanted to read. I just got so into it. It was so exciting. It was so much fun, and I didn't realize this until just recently. Like what I really liked was it was a world
Mm-hmm.
that was being created. Like Spider-Man would sometimes team up with the Fantastic Four, and then like later on they would reference it, and Human Torch would remember hanging out with Spider-Man, and I was like, wow, this is like a world. Like I'm looking at snippets, like each comic book was like a facet on this gem, and up until I'd say up until like 20 years ago, Marvel was really fastidious about crossing the T's and dotting the I's, and you know if Wolverine was on a mission to the Savage Land for 6 months, he wasn't in every comic for a couple of months. You know what I mean? And it just made it seem so real. And so bottom line is I became like a fan of continuity. Like when I read, like I love Lord of the Rings because I can't figure out like a mistake in Tolkien.
Mm-hmm.
Everything makes it. And then when I got into Harry Potter, I started reading the Harry Potter books, and me being who I was trying to catch continuity errors. And I couldn't. I just fell in love with the Harry Potter world. There's a couple minor errors, but I think she can explain them away. But I love that. I love that continuity. And then I don't know. It just felt like I was part of a world.
Yeah, what you're describing, man, you seem much more like just in a few short minutes right there. You seem much more than even a comic book fan. You seem like a fan of narrative and story. Like you seem like the kind of guy 300 years ago would have been writing like epic poems.
Thank you. I always wanted to. When I was a real little kid, I wanted to draw comics. I think everybody who's into comics wanted to draw. That's the glory.
I did too, but I just couldn't.
Yeah, I just don't have. I just didn't have the dedication. So then I wanted to write comics. I wanted to write the Fantastic Four. That was my favorite Marvel comic for such a long time. And I got disillusioned. I don't think Marvel would ever hire me. But I do like story, and that's why this is going to be mean. But like in the '90s, when Image Comics came out, like everybody else, I got them, and then I was like, is the Emperor naked over here? The Emperor's new. These comics are terrible. Like Image was the perfect name. They were
That's
just
all they were. Yeah.
Yeah, there were static images without a story. And I think in a couple of years, people started realizing it.
No, like that is a controversial take, especially in indie comics now. But I 100% agree with you, and that's something my artist Josh and I have talked over. I've got the first 100 issues of Spawn right here because I love Capullo and I love McFarlane. But I'll be damned if it's not some of the worst story writing I've ever read in my life.
I stopped Spawn at 63, and I tell you, I can't remember anything that happened after issue 9.
Oh yeah, and he's in trouble now. But the worst part is Neil Gaiman is the only one that kind of made Spawn interesting.
Yeah, Neil Gaiman. The less said, the better. Yeah.
Oh yeah, especially right now. But that's an interesting thing, though. I mean, that's what, and I've heard you speak about it with your book, and that's what I think drew people to your book. And to another degree, guys like Von Coleman. I was channel I was just on either last night or night before last, but it's interesting in indie comics kind of finally seeing story come to the forefront.
Yeah, I'm it's hard to, you look at a comic, especially comic on sold crowdfunding, because you can't hold it in your hand, you can't flip through it. But you go to a comic store, you're gonna get attracted to the art. Like some comic could have the best writing in the world, and then you look at it and the cover sucks, or the artist and that. And unfortunately, you're gonna bypass. It's just the nature of the beast with comics. Comics is a visual medium. But I will say, if I buy a comic and I don't like the art, but I like the story, I will keep buying that comic. If I buy a comic and even the art is great and the story sucks, I'm done. Because then just make an art book.
Oh yeah.
I like story. I really like I like Greek mythology, and again with Greek mythology, as a little kid, I used to keep notes. How can this story make sense? Because Hercules wasn't born yet in this story, but this story, Hercules, you know what I mean? Like I'm trying to make continuity out of Greek mythology. That's the kind of weirdo I was at a kid. But I love story. And here's another controversial thing that I'm going to admit: the first time ever, it's an exclusive on your. As a kid, I loved the first Star Wars movie. They call it A New Hope now, but back then it was just Star Wars. And then when Empire Strikes Back came out, I was going, George Lucas doesn't know where he's going. And then by the time Return of the Jedi came out, it's like he's making this up as he's going along. This,
he knows where he's going. He's going to the bank.
Right. Yeah. But I still loved it. Loved it. But even so, my point being, even as a little kid, I was just like,
yeah,
you gotta cross your T's, dot your I's.
Well, man, like let's go with it. And I'm not trying to be controversial here or bypass a lot, but I think a lot of people that will watch this or are watching it, they know you, and that's a good thing.
Right.
What are some of the other things? Like you mentioned Star Wars, you mentioned Greek mythology. What are some of the other non-comic influences that you have?
King Arthur and the Knights. I told the story more than a few times, but like I said, in third grade, I was in the bottom reading group, and then I started reading comics. And by the end of third grade, I was in the top reading group, and I just, I was going to look over here because it was over here, but I started playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Dungeons and Dragons, super huge influence on my comics. Like when you start seeing, like, issue 3, I'm going to introduce like a metaphysical character, and you're going to see, oh my God, this guy was into old school D&D. Like, I can't change it, and I don't want to change it. So you'll see Dungeons and Dragons was a big influence. Now, I don't know if you know, but Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition, they had a book called The Deities and Demigods.
All right.
It was all stats of Greek mythology, of Roman mythology. Well, not Roman mythology, but like Arthurian knights, and then it had the Cthulhu myth. Oh my God, I was obsessed with that book, and it's one of the most important books in my life. And I made a point to read everything that came from that book. So I already read Greek mythology. So then I found out about H.P. Lovecraft, and I read all about Lovecraft. And in my edition, it had Elric of Melniboné.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I read all the Michael Moorcock books and Fafhrd and Grey Mouser and the Kavala, and so this was like 5th grade. I was taking out all these books, and I remember my school psychologist, because I would take notes on index cards. I put them in my pocket.
Yeah.
And she found one of these notes and brought me to and like I was being grilled on these, and I just remember going like, am I in trouble for reading? Like at this point, when you're in 5th grade,
yeah,
I was just about to stop reading. If she told me, you know what I mean? If she said the wrong thing, that would have been it. And I don't know. I'd be like a drone in a factory today. But she was like, no. So I was like, okay. So then I started explaining all these notes, and she was like, dude, calm down. Yeah, I was just, so I was always everything, Dungeons and Dragons, reading. I saw that the Excalibur movie.
From the 80s. Yeah.
This will show you how much I love that movie.
And what a fever dream of a movie it is.
Yeah.
Nice.
I had to buy a proper Excalibur. And believe it or not, I got into that before Tolkien. Then I saw the Rankin and Bass Hobbit movie on TV, and I was like, "What is this? What is this?" And then my friend was like, "Yeah." And there was a comic called Warriors of the Shadow Realm by Marvel Comics.
Yeah,
and it was, they just had these guys on horseback. They're all black. My friend's like, they're ripping off Tolkien. Those are the Nazgul. And I was like, what's the Nazgul? So the funny thing is, I finally bought the Warriors of the Shadow. It's right here. I haven't read it yet, even though I've been fascinated by it as a little kid. Like I'm like, what if they're dead? Like meeting your favorite rock star. What if he's a jerk? So I got to read it.
Well, I think that's an important thing, and that's something my artist and co-owner Josh talk about a lot. Is like, you do reach a point, like an age, where you realize that all the things you thought were cool as a kid really were cool.
Right.
Yeah.
We all do that. It's going to sound mean, ladies and gentlemen, but somewhere around 14 years old, those hormones overriding your logic center, and you're into girls, and then you're like, girls don't like guys that are into Nightcrawler and know the etymology of the Noldor and the elves. You know what I mean? So you kind of like shun it. I remember like I still had comics, but I literally hid them in my closet just in case like friends would come over. And then one day, my friend Dennis, who was like the quarterback of the football team, I joined football so I could go to all the parties, stuff like that. And they just came over to get me one day, and I was like unprepared. I remember I was in my bed and I fell asleep, and I had Daredevil comics all over, and they were like, "Oh, I love Daredevil," and I'm like, "Oh my god!" So I did that whole. I went back and embraced it, and I now I'm known as the guy at work who's just like, they'll tease me. "Hey, John, you playing Dungeons Dragon this weekend?" I was like, "Yeah, I got a warrior character for you." Like I'll just yell it at the construction site, and everybody laughs. And my foreman, who's like really strict, he's just like this real strict guy. Everybody's afraid of him. And I'm like, "Hey, Jerry, we need a fifth. The wizard contact. You can be a wizard. 6th level. You can go cast fireball right away. Come on." And he just turns red, shakes his head. He's like, "What am I going to do with this guy?" But, just embrace it,
Oh yeah, well that's an important thing because, like you said about your friends coming over and all the Daredevils. I mean, that's kind of like how 99% of this stuff kind of goes. It's like and I think that's what Tolkien or Lewis, one thing was C.S. Lewis said that like finding a friend is like when you realize someone going, "Oh, really? You love that too?" Like,
yeah. I got a new partner at work. He just started on the job, and he shows up. He's got Marvel stickers all over his hat. My foreman Pete just goes, "You got to be partners with him." We was, I'm an electrician, so I'm in this panel over here, and we're fixing this panel. All of these, it just took all day to do it. You got to do it systematically, or things will blow up. So he's over here, and I'm over here. We're testing and splicing. Talk comics all day long, 8 hours, except for lunch, just comic books all day long. Didn't even mind the cold today. It was freezing.
So what about to circle back? You mentioned that Fantastic Four was like one of your first loves. What about that story, especially that run and that time about it, really intrigued you?
The first comic. Well, I always liked the Fantastic Four. First off, when I was a little kid, like I don't even remember where it came from, but we had a crawl space in the garage, and we had a ladder that would go up there, and I didn't realize at the time, but my older brothers and sisters, that's where they would go to smoke pot, and I'm just sitting there, But they had all these posters, and one of the posters was the Fantastic Four. It was an old John Romita Senior poster. I'm sure we've all seen this poster. So that poster was always there. Like when I was born, that poster was there, kind of thing. So the Fantastic Four has always been something. And then with my own money, I bought Fantastic Four 186. It's Reed Richards at the end of the comic turns into the Molecule Man and becomes and it's written. I think it was Len Wein was the writer, but it was the art was George Perez and Joe Sinnott.
That's a good combination.
Oh my God. How, and they were like aping like a Jack Kirby style. It was so good. I was just, and it was a kind of complicated. Like I went back and reread it a couple of weeks ago. It's kind of complicated because they're coming back from an adventure. Reed Richards lost his powers. Agatha Harkness is just walking around, and it didn't really explain it, but it was just so good that you didn't care. And you just got sucked into this world. Like I was like, this is a bigger world. The Impossible Man showing up, and Claw shows up, and then the Molecule Man. And, it was just all over the place. I can't recommend this issue enough. It's so much fun. Yeah. And I was just hooked. And then, that was it. So I just got Fantastic Four every month from 186. And then I've since got every issue back. So I have a near complete Fantastic Four run. I just, now that you're a homeowner and stuff like that, I'm like, can I really lay out the money to buy? I'm missing 2 and 3, I think.
Those are pretty big issues to get.
Yeah.
Like that's the Fantastic Four is it's so that's a concept that is so Stan Lee that if it hadn't hit at that time. And that's the unfortunate thing about them is and they're trying to bring them back over and over and over, but they're not as unfortunately as recognizable and iconic as Spider-Man or something like that, or Batman. But they have the staying power no matter how much like they get a movie in the 90s, people like crap on it. They get a movie in the 2000s and people crapped on it. They get a second one and that one deserves to get crapped on. And they're bringing them back now, but when people actually read their stories and see them and actually go into them, they're like, oh, like this is a strong foundation of like 4 distinct characters in a family. Like they have this staying power that I think people don't realize until they really dive into them.
Well, it was called the world's greatest comic magazine for a reason, for decades. Stan Lee he was working in comics. I don't know exactly how many years, but over 10 years before he did the Fantastic Four. He was in charge of Marvel Comics when it was Atlas Comics in the 50s, and they would do a Monster of the Week and War Comics, and then comics went to that un-American activities with the 10-cent plague and everything. So comics got a bad reputation, and Stan always wanted to leave, and he wanted to write his novel, and he wanted to do something respectable.
Yeah.
So he was legit going to pull the plug and get out of there. And his wife said, well, why don't you make the comic you've always wanted to make before you leave? So he made Fantastic Four. And nowadays we just take it for granted, but it was groundbreaking at the time. They didn't have costumes. They bickered. One of them was a monster who was on the verge of becoming a villain if he didn't have friends. It was really, really different. The villain, the Mole Man, you kind of sympathized with him, but at the same time, he was clearly wrong. It was so good. And then the Jack Kirby artwork, that was just, so imaginative. Like I did a video comparing Fantastic Four #1 to Justice League #1, and it's just like, I don't know, was it 9 months difference or something like that? Or, maybe a little bit more, maybe a year, and it's night and day. It's like the Justice League #1 was like a comic book, just like what 40-year-old men said, this is what 6-year-olds like.
Yeah.
Whereas Stan Lee was just like, I want to make a comic that everybody could like, like I'm going to make this something good. And it, like, again, we take it for granted now. And then I think something happened in the late 90s where it was like the traditional family became like embarrassing or bad or whatever. And they turned Reed into like a jerk, the father figure, and the wife is bickering and fighting. Like I just and then like I think like the Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns, as much as they're great comic book watersheds, is that the right word?
Yeah.
At the same time, I think they did a lot of damage, because it was like, oh, now we got to be grim and gritty, and now we got to be deconstructing and stuff. It's fine for the Watchmen, but like that, every comic needs to be deconstructed. And Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns was fine, grim and gritty, but everything didn't have to be like, Superman's not supposed to be grim and gritty. It's supposed to be bright and hopeful and cheery. And I think they just thought of the Fantastic Four as a passe. Yeah. And like, they sold the rights to Fox, and then the Marvel Universe, took off with Iron Man and stuff like that, and Marvel couldn't make a Fantastic Four movie. So I think Marvel themselves sabotaged the Fantastic Four.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time Marvel has sabotaged themselves.
Yeah, they really sabotaged Fantastic Four, because I think they wanted to devalue the brand so that Fox would give up the rights and go back to Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Or why are they going to put all their best talent on a comic that they can't capitalize on? Like, you know what I mean? Like, X-Men was still selling so good, so it would have been stupid of them to devalue the X-Men. But, so that's one of the reasons I made my character the patriarch, because like, I wanted a family. I wanted a father who's not a jerk. I want a wife that loves the husband. I want the husband that loves the wife. He's not flying around meeting other chicks and stuff like that. He wants to spend time with his family. He, one of the things you'll see in an upcoming issue is the family plays Dungeons and Dragons together. Yeah. He's got 7 kids and they all fight and play, and that's what they want to do. But duty calls, and he's flying around, and and the wife doesn't bust his chops. Why are you out saving the world? You're saving lives. They're good people, and he couldn't do it without her, and
Yeah. Oh, I think you hit the nail on the head there, especially in the 90s. And I think it was brewing under the surface before, but kind of in the 80s and whatnot. But the 90s were definitely the dysfunctional family era.
Right.
And
that Roseanne Barr show, which was good.
The Simpsons. Yeah.
The Simpsons. Yeah. The dysfunctional family became like almost like the de facto family in America.
Yeah, that's the shame. Like, and it was almost like a spell cast on everybody. Because like, I remember even as a kid, I was a kid when that happened, but I remember seeing like the push, and that was the term, dysfunctional. And it's like it was trying to like normalize that's how all families are. Right. And it's like, no, like that's how do we go from Leave It to Beaver to Homer Simpson in like 40 years?
Like Malcolm in the Middle was around this time, and I loved Malcolm in the Middle because you had a husband and a wife that loved each other. and like it wasn't like dad's a jerk, mom's, dad kind of was a jerk, but mom was kind of a trouble.
Yeah, she was definitely a jerk.
But at the same time, like when the kids, the mom and dad got together,
Yeah,
and, like one of my favorite episodes was they fixed up the shed, and they made it so that mom and dad could go hang out in that shed and be together. Like they would put on music and dance, they would have drinks, and kiss, like they loved each other. And the kids were like, we wanted the shed. And they're like, you got the house. And, but like any other sitcom, it would just be like, Raymond, I got the shed so I could get away from everybody and play pool. I don't know. But so I was like, I had a happy childhood. Yeah, I fought. One of my brothers punched another. We all beat each other up. There's 7 of us. My father spanked us all. My mom yelled. But we were American happy family. And I'm like, and then you read like so many kids grow up without a dad, and then and then you see all of this like feminist stuff, like I mean a man like a fish needs a bicycle, and I'm like, I don't want to have anything to do with that. I don't want to watch The Boys. I want to, but that doesn't mean my comic is just like sappy, like an Archie comic or anything too. Like there's going to be some. You'll see. I think people are going to be surprised at how dark some issues are going to get. I was telling the plots to my coworker today, and
nice.
For issue 4, he's like, you can't do that. People are going to get mad at you. And I'm like, well, it's going to happen. Issue 1 had, did you read Heroic Tales?
I have not.
Oh,
I've got it on my list. I've got it right behind Phenomena Nova, and
as long as you bought it, that's all.
Finder.
But you'll see the backup story. I almost killed the story because it got really dark.
I've heard. I've been in some chat rooms about it, and people have found it really interesting. Like, man, I can't believe John did this. This is some daring stuff to go through. So I don't want to spoil it. I do know the B plot.
So I was like, I've been telling everybody it's 80s comics, and I'm like, people forget the 80s was punk rock. Punk rock started in the 70s, but really it became, and then like movies like Gremlins came out that had like people getting killed and monsters and blenders.
And that mother in the first Gremlins movie is the most competent horror movie person I've ever seen. She kills like the entire brood herself.
Like the 80s was shocking. Like we had the Ramones. So like, and then you read a lot of the comics from the 80s. The Punisher was killing people, and I remember he was opening up like cargo boxes full of child slaves that he saved. And so I'm like, okay, I could do it. Plus, I paid for it. I got to do it. It would delay the comic too long. So I did it. And it's funny because the opening page of issue 2 is the patriarch and his wife. They're in bed together, fooling around. They're a happily married couple. And Renzo sent me. I was like, I can't use this page. This is too explicit. Renzo's like, it's fine. It's only pencils. I was like, yeah, we throw a blanket on.
Let me pull this up real quick. Logic's Finest had always wondered who came first, the Impossible Man or Mixoplick.
Mixoplick.
Did he come first?
He came first by like 20 years. I think Mixoplick showed up in the 50s, and Impossible Man showed up in Fantastic Four. I don't remember exactly what issue, but Fantastic Four #1 was 1962, and Mixoplick was already well established by that point.
And the
DC stuff came first.
Yeah, Marvel had a tendency to steal from DC.
Marvel was younger than DC. The only time Marvel was first was the Submariner was before Aquaman.
Yeah. So Mixoplick, his whole thing was you had to get him to say his name.
Yeah, backwards.
That was it. There was a Superman, the animated series cartoon with him in it that was amazing. It was one of the best written cartoons I've ever seen. It was Superman. I think he got him to say his name backwards like 3 times in a row by spelling it out in the sky. It was classic. I loved it.
Yeah, it's funny because growing up, I love Superman. I've always loved Superman. There's pictures of me as a little kid with a towel, running around and jumping and stuff like that. I always loved Superman, but I didn't always love Superman comics. I always thought they were hokey and silly, like oh, Superman blue, let's meet up with Superman green and go to the next dimension. I was always drawn to Marvel comics, and now as an adult, I'm picking up these old Silver Age Supermans, and I am loving them.
I picked this up off of Facebook Marketplace the other day. The Superman blue, I got it for like maybe $15. I had to have it. I enjoyed that run because I thought it.
Well, I was talking like even way before, like from the
Yeah,
50s and 60s, like the hokey Superman Silver Age stuff. But yeah, I got that run when it came out.
The reason I did was because ever since Death of Superman, I have loved Hank Henshaw, the cyborg Superman, as an idea. One of my favorite villains of all time. Anything that related to him, and I remember my favorite run of this Blue Superman was when Hank Henshaw integrated himself with the Source Wall, and they had to go and fight him. But I have a very soft spot for that. Anything that has to do with the cyborg Superman. So I have to ask you this, and to preface it, whatever your answer is fine with me. I'm not going to be vicious about it.
No, I will not go out with you. I'm happily married.
I'm happily married as well. What are your thoughts on the Snyderverse Man of Steel?
I hated it. They fundamentally did not get Superman. This Man of Steel was the last DC movie I saw. I hated
what's funny, John, is I absolutely loved it.
That's fine. I'm not one. I remember because somebody else asked me the same question, and you messaged me. You didn't even want to say it live. Can we still be friends? I was like, oh, we could just.
Of course.
Because if you're making a movie where people are scared of Superman for any reason, that's not a Superman. Like Superman is an angelic being. Like when he lands, even if you don't know who he is. Like the first Christopher Reeve Superman, like he shows up and that guy goes, "Man, that is one bad outfit."
Oh yeah, that's one bad outfit.
You know what I mean? like if Superman shows up, like you're on fire, your house is on fire, rather. LA is on fire, and Superman shows up, and it's the first time people are going to be like, forgetting about the house and like, what's going on? And then he blows the fire out. You know what I mean? So to me, it all went downhill when Superman goes. And he saves that school bus full of kids, and his father goes, "Well, maybe you shouldn't have." I'm like, "You lost me."
Now, do you think that the current administration in California would let Superman put out the fires?
Well, that's just it. Superman would do the right thing. He's not the Blue Marvel, a character that I hate from Marvel Comics, who the administration was scared of a powerful black man, so he just sat through slavery. You're a horrible superhero, Blue Marvel. You're the most powerful people on the planet, and the government, the Jim Crow government or the pro-slavery government tells you, don't do anything.
Okay.
I
thought Icon was a better Black Superman than he was than Blue Marvel was.
Yeah, the Miles. Yeah, the Miles. I just did a video with Vaughn Coleman, and I just got a notification that somebody else claims ownership. Every freaking video on
Facebook. Are you serious?
All the time, and every day I have to dispute it. And then 3 days later, the dispute goes away. Facebook, get your act together. These people are scammers. Knock it off. But anyway, that has I just can't. I have no focus.
No, I enjoyed it.
It was really good.
Yeah.
It was funny because something bothered me about Milestone, and it didn't put until recently. It's just like I don't like identity politics.
Yeah.
We are the black superhero company. I'm like, yeah, it's a good thing you had good writers, and it's a good thing you had good characters, good art. But like, I don't want to read the Indian comic book company. And I know people could be like, "Well, Marvel's the white comic book company." No, it's it started in the '60s. Of course, they're all white. They're black characters. We all love Luke Cage. We all love Blade. I don't like Miles Morales because I don't want just diluted Spider-Man.
I didn't care for him either. I saw the first Spider-Verse, did not like it. I did not even bother seeing the second one. All I could think in the movie it seems like, why couldn't we get a good Static Shock film?
Yeah, we all like Static Shock. Spawn was good.
Spawn, yeah. What's funny is that movie still holds up for what it is. I enjoy the first Spawn movie.
First Spawn movie. I remember that scene when the clown would, what's his name, John
Leguizamo, yeah,
the clown. I laughed out loud. I was just like, this is so bad.
See, I remember him, and especially we got to give it up to Wesley Snipes. Wesley Snipes almost single-handedly made Blade a household name, because I knew Blade from comics, but I didn't know a single person who did know Blade. And then after that first movie came out,
people didn't even know it was a Marvel movie.
Exactly, they didn't know it was a comic book movie. But the after it came out, every person I knew who Blade was.
Yeah, that's a perfect. Iron Man really wasn't that popular. Everybody kind of knew who Iron Man was, but then Robert Downey Jr.'s performance. It was a good movie. So I get so mad, but like, why do we have to race up characters? Well, we want to make up a new black character. Like, you don't need to make Captain Marvel a woman. You got Valkyrie, this blonde, beautiful character. Like, oh, nobody cares about it. Well, nobody cared about Blade. You gonna tell me anybody cared about Groot before the movie came out?
Yep.
You know what I mean? Or Rocket Raccoon?
Well, even the show, which wasn't great, Moon Knight, the show at least kept people into the character.
Right.
And he's a weird character to get people into. I couldn't pitch Moon Knight to anybody.
It was not, unless you were an old school Marvel collector like myself, you didn't know who Agatha Harkness was before that woman played her and she did a great job in the Scarlet Witch TV show, to the fact that they gave her own show.
Yeah.
So you could take any bad character or B-list character or unheard of character, get some good writing, get some good costumes, get a good actor. And, like I said, nobody knew who John Wick was the day before the John Wick movie opened.
Yeah.
So
now he's a household name.
I don't want to hear like, oh, I know it takes too long to make a good character. The fact that you're race swapping, gender swapping, or whatever swapping just shows you that you don't have faith in your own talent.
Oh, that's great. Great line. And like, that's the thing is, it's gone back and forth for like 10 years now, like the whole woke invasion of comics and stuff. But it's very simple. It's just tell good stories. You can get away with almost anything, as Alan Moore has proven, if you just tell a good story.
Yeah.
But the thing is, people, I used to think they didn't
want Neil Gaiman is finding out they can't get away with anything.
Story-wise, you can get away with it.
I know it's going to be pooped on, but I still like Sandman. To me, I'm not going to lie and say, oh, my feelings for this comic book are changed. I'm disappointed with the author, but I still like the comic.
Oh no, I completely agree with separation of art and artist. Like I'm an artist myself, you are as well. I think art, I'm not trying to get too spiritual or metaphysical here, but I think art is the place where good men can exercise their demons and bad men can reach for divinity. I think art is the equalizer where no matter who you are, what you are, you can create something good. So no, I believe in separating the art from the artist. I'm going to give Neil Gaiman hell forever now, though. But
I'm mad I even brought him up. A couple of people gave me hell for the backup story in my comic, and I'm like, dude, it's about a guy who sells his soul to the devil. Like, you don't think he sold his soul to the devil to what? Mug old ladies? You know what I mean? Like,
well, a 60s
villain
would have.
Yeah. So, I'm setting up how evil this bad guy is.
Well, McFarlane did that in the first couple of issues of Spawn with Billy Kincaid. He was like, nope, we're going to have a pedophile and I'm going to kill him. Like, we're going to get dark with this. What do you think a Hellspawn is going to do,
Lucius Kane isn't the pedophile, but he's the guy who finds out about pedophilia and uses it to blackmail somebody else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like, he's no better, but...
Yeah, well, we have seen, the Jeffrey Epstein stuff and everything. Like, this stuff is unfortunately way more prominent than people realize or want to admit, and it needs to be addressed and it needs to be condemned and talked about.
Marvel Comics has the Hellfire Club gala, and Captain America's dressed up in a tuxedo and hanging out with the Marvel equivalent of Jeffrey Epstein. Read this. This just tells me that A, these people never read classic X-Men comics, or B, they're evil people. I will assume that they just didn't read the classic X-Men comics, because the Hellfire Club was a sex trafficking club.
Okay, they were awful
things. And to have Captain America and the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man dressing up to go to Jeffrey Epstein Island is either you're ignorant or I hate to say it, you're in on the conspiracy.
Well, that's the thing is, like,
on my Alex Jones tinfoil.
Well, the Krakoan era and the Hellfire Gala, like what 50, and I don't mean it me, I shouldn't mean it me, but like what 50-year-old cat lady wrote this? Like, this is literally the most Disney villain crap ever. Like I'm supposed to believe now Doctor Doom just puts on like roses and stuff and goes and talks like Ursula. Like, it doesn't make sense. These aren't comic books anymore. They're just soap operas.
Movies of all the villains, they're not really
exactly. Yeah. And these people, like they made Mr. Sinister basically like I don't mean this in a derogatory way. I mean in a descriptive way, like a gay theater kid villain. And there's a place for those, but it's not Mr. Sinister. His name's Mr. Sinister, for
Right.
God's sakes. It was like when Killmonger, like when Black Panther came out, and people were like Killmonger was right. It's like, I don't think a guy named Killmonger is ever right.
Right.
Like,
Mark Waid, and I'm sure we all have strong feelings about
Yeah.
Mark Waid, but he is a good comic book writer.
oh yeah,
He wrote his Doctor Doom story where Doctor Doom realized, I need to learn more magic. I need to learn more magic secrets. Like, one thing we forget about Doctor Doom, he's the second best scientist in all of Marvel,
hmm
and he's the second best magician in all of Marvel.
yeah,
And so he's like, Reed Richards will never best me if I up my magic. So what he did is he made a deal with some sinister Mephisto or whatever Marvel devil that he is, and he went to his high school girlfriend, wooed her away from her family, seduced her, then murdered her, and made a suit of armor out of her skin to show this evil demon, I'm on your side, right? I'm evil.
yeah.
And then that guy upped his magic knowledge, taught him some secrets. That guy isn't leading an Avengers squad of superheroes.
Yeah.
This is a guy who murdered. Not only did he murder an ex-girlfriend, but he wooed her back from her friend. This is evil personified.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is, like,
these people today never read that Doctor Doom comic.
No, they don't care. They want to just turn him into
the name of that
a cartoon.
Irredeemable. That was the name of the story.
Oof. Well, there's a difference between comic books and cartoons, and people kind of lump them together. And like cartoon is like Looney Tunes. Anything can happen. A comic book, as you started this conversation with, has canon, and it matters. And I don't mean to get in spats on Twitter, but I do sometimes, because I have a very high opinion of art. I have a divine opinion of art. I think it is beyond beauty. And what really gets on my nerves is when people, especially the postmodern idea of subjectivism, or anything can be anything. It's like, no, if anything is anything, then it's nothing.
Then everything is nothing. Yeah,
exactly. Everything is nothing. And it's, if you don't have canon, if you don't have established lore, nothing matters. What makes Dr. Doom? His name's Dr. Doom. Like,
right. Yeah, Dr. Doom is not going to be. I could see Dr. Doom doing like a pretend heel turn and rescuing people just to like lure people on, you know what I mean? Because he's sinister and sneaky, but he's Dr. Doom. He wants to rule the world with iron fist. Like, why you guys need Dr. Doom? You got all of these heroes in Marvel. You need Dr. Doom to be the good guy, how many right now, how many bad guys are reformed and are good guys?
Too many of them.
Yeah, like Sandman, who fought Spider-Man, he reformed for a little while. Like, he wasn't irredeemable. He was just like a bank robber because he was a schlub. You know what I mean? Like, I could see a bank robber going to jail, realizing he's a jerk, coming out. I got these powers. Let me be a good guy for a while. And then after a while, like, this is too difficult. And he slides back. That's fine. But Dr. Doom, like the Red Skull, he's not going to just open up a diner. He's irredeemably bad, and that's fine. And Superman is irredeemably good, if that whatever the opposite word is. That's
but that's a good point, though, is because the opposite always happens. They redeem villains and then they demonize heroes.
Right.
And I stopped reading X-Men in the mid to late 90s when I kept seeing that there was the start of it. When they started making Professor X like a bad guy, or just making him wrong all the time.
Or let's have Magneto run the bad guy, run the X. The final straw for me was Magneto gets captured. He goes to like the World Court in Geneva, and he's being tried for all his crimes. And then the X-Men break him out because we just want to be treated like everybody else, except when we get arrested and have to go stand trial for our crimes.
Yeah, for killing tons of people.
Want to be treated differently. The X-Men are the biggest crybaby hypocrites, and that was it. I rage quit X-Men in around 204 issue. I've since, because I'm weak, I've since bought 4 runs on eBay, and I think I caught up. But I'm like, X-Men, you guys deserve persecution. If they're really and they behaved like the X-Men, man, like let's get Ben Shapiro and let's go lock and load and take out the X-Men, because I wrote an article and I published it in a Marvel forum.
Oh yeah.
years and years. And man, did people hate me for it, because the article was the X-Men deserve persecution. And I listed every time that we just want to be treated like everybody else, except when I get pulled over for a speeding ticket and I'm Cyclops and I'm going to blast the cop's car with my I-beams and continue driving, because that's what I would do. Just shoot the cop car and keep driving. You were speeding. Who the hell are you? You don't have a badge. You're not the Avengers. You're not even the Fantastic Four. Or we're gonna harbor Sabretooth in our basement. This is a serial killer cannibal. And then what does he do? He attacks other people and kills them. You guys are responsible for every death that Sabretooth created. After that, he's not. We're gonna harbor Magneto, and then he's gonna steal all the X-Men technology and fly off and do other horrible. Come on, guys. The first thing you want to do, like the first X-Men movie, I hate that movie. Magneto that first X-Men movie should have been Rogue is making out with her boyfriend, and he all of a sudden her powers kick in because of her adrenaline and everything like that and whatever, and boom, this poor guy is now comatose and he's and like, what's going on? And then Rogue gets arrested, like the cops come to arrest her, and first cop grabs her to put the handcuffs on. That cop is now comatose, and cops are dropping by and they don't know what to do with her, and they finally just like basically hit her with a gun butt, and drag her into the whatever. And now she's abused, and Magneto. Yeah. So now she's standing her trial, and Magneto breaks into and Rogue. You'll never get a fair trial. They hate us, and now the evil mutants break Rogue out, and Rogue thinks she's bad, and she's like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't fit in with people. They play it on this poor guilty conscience, and now the X-Men show up to get Rogue to bring her back so she could stand trial. And
that's a great story idea.
X-Men realized nothing ever happened without a trial. She's going to get her fair day in court. They're going to show that she had no control over this thing. The cops weren't bad. They saw people dropping basically dead by touching. So the cops overreacted, but they don't know anything because we don't know about mutants. We're going to make mutants a real thing, and people, and the world is now different because, you got to have a day in court. That would have been an excellent movie to have talked about persecution and minorities, and like Martin Luther King wanted to have his day in court. You know what I mean? Everybody, they had the court, legalities to get rid of slavery. Instead they just like, we're gonna take her and turn other people into fish people for reasons. It was such a bad movie, So there you go.
Well, there was there was an episode of the cartoon in the 90s with Beast where Magneto tried to break him out, and Beast puts his shackles back on. I was like, no, I'm going to stand trial. Like, and it was, I mean, I was a kid when that came out, and it hit me so hard. But what you just said though, like, it shows so much about, and I mean, that's why I love talking to guys like you, man. You understand what superheroes are and like what heroes are, and like the whole thing is like, no, it is a belief that our systems can be good, and that people can meet on mutual ground instead of this division of identity politics. It takes the extremes, and it takes the outliers and those within to work together to make it work.
Nothing was ever, at least in America anyway, nothing was ever just given to people. You had to fight, you had to get your day in court, you had to, you lost the case, then you appeal, and you know what I mean? Law has to be slow, otherwise it's just reactionary, and then nobody wants that. So I think the X-Men movie, had such high hopes for it, and like the first couple, and then you show like that movie opened up with Magneto in a concentration camp. I was like, oh my God, this is gonna be so. And then it just devolved into, I'm gonna turn people into fish people using magnets, and it was just like, what is going on? And I'm a dummy, and I thought of I think what would have been an important movie, if I could go back in time, I'd be like, this script sucks. Just show up. This is what you're doing. Like, with a weapon, here's the real script. You can use your name. I don't want any credit. I just want a good X-Men movie. Goodbye.
I always wanted an Alpha Flight movie that took place in maybe the Canadian tundra, and one of two things, either Wendigos or Omega Red. I just want to see one of, and make it a borderline horror film.
Oh, a Wendigo horror movie. Yep. The Alpha Flight, that would have been awesome.
Imagine Puck like taking on like three of those things in the dark, man.
I got so excited when they said they were going to make a New Mutants movie and it was going to be a horror movie.
I know.
I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. Oops. Nope.
Now I'll tell you, I love that film, but I recognize how bad it is. Like, I'm just happy it exists, but the wasted potential, it I don't know, it kills you what it could have been.
Logic's Finest always argues with me, and he does good points. He says Man of Steel is a masterpiece. However, if you look at it as a standalone visual creation and pretend it's not Superman, then it's on its own merits. It's not Superman. Superman fundamentally inspires hope and trust and light and positivity. You know, the whole movie was like, he's an alien, we don't like him, and he's freaky, and his own father's telling him, hi, don't be what you are. You know, it's not Superman. That should have been like Power Guy. You know, that's fine. Like I don't know, like the absolute
Power Guy.
You know, absolute. It's another version of Batman. It's a different take on Batman. He's a blonde guy who's not rich and he works in the circus, and he doesn't. So it's not Batman. That's not Batman. You know,
that was my problem with Absolute Batman.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That's not Batman. That's another character, and you're calling him Batman because you don't believe in this character enough, and you're stealing the gravitas of Batman, but it's not Batman. So you just, you know.
Everything.
Morales, it's like, okay, he's a black kid he's got these chameleon powers, so it's not Spider-Man.
Yeah,
but you're stealing the Spider-Man because you don't believe in this new character that you're building.
I don't like the multiverse idea. I don't like a million spider people. What makes it work isn't power. That's the whole thing. Is Peter Parker. You give anybody else those powers, it doesn't matter. Peter Parker is what makes them matter.
Peter Parker was a spoiled, horrible, maladjusted kid who was going to become Dr. Octopus. I mean, the first thing he did was he wanted to make money. You know, he ignored
get girls,
people's problems. Like he let that. I don't care about this robber. You know, and he was on his way to becoming a villain. Nobody understands me. They'll rule the day. Like he's literally saying this stuff in his first appearance, and then his uncle died, and he was like, "Oh my god." You know, the only really important thing in this world I let happen. I had the ability to change this, and that's it. Spider-Man was a flawed, miserable, rotten, maladjusted kid who all of a sudden, through guilt, said, I got to make up for this for the rest of my life. I got to make up for what I allowed to happen. And that's if you make a Spider-Man movie and you don't reference, I'm not saying let's do another, because how many Spider-Man origins are we going to suffer through? But if you know, that's why Tom Holland, that's not Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Because they never talk about Uncle Ben. He doesn't talk about the guilt. They don't talk about the responsibility. That to me is like having Batman that parents don't die, or Superman who doesn't come from Krypton. You know what I mean? There's certain fundamentals that you have to do. And Tom Holland Spider-Man and now he's basically Iron Kid.
Yeah.
You know, he's got a suit of iron, and he's got claws that pop out, and he's got web shooters that never run out, and he's got access to that's cool, but that ain't Spider-Man.
Yeah, he wasn't, and it sucks because he is a good actor.
Yeah, I don't have anything against him.
Yeah, it was that wasn't Spider-Man. Like it was, and then they made the mistake of trying to do an Uncle Ben thing in the last one. But it's like, well, then why has he been Spider-Man this whole time if he didn't have that?
And somebody said it. And I wish I could credit the person who said it, but he was just like, he showed up during Civil War, and his next appearance, he's like fighting Thanos. We never got to see Spider-Man fighting muggers, Spider-Man stopping crime. You know, you're right. Yeah, he just, you know, he went from first level to 50th level in 2 movies, and we never got to see all that character building stuff of him running out of web fluid and him like, oh my God, there's Dr. Octopus, but I got to get this medicine to Aunt May. And Aunt May being a hot freaking, I don't know how old she is, but she's freaking hot.
Oh yeah.
Aunt May's supposed to be feeble. She's another responsibility tacked on. This poor guy, he's got school, he's got these powers, and he's got Strider showing up. You know, he's got all of these problems, but Aunt May, he's got 99 problems, and Aunt May ain't one of them. You know, they really messed up. As nothing against Mr. Tomei, she's beautiful, she's cool, I like her, but she's not Aunt May, and that's not Spider-Man.
Rosemary Harris, she is not.
Yeah, she was perfect as Aunt May, and even
Yes,
she
she
looked
was.
too healthy. She needed to be coughing a little bit.
No, that's true. Aunt May, man, she had by like the 80s, she had all those lines in her face, like she was going to
Right,
fall
yeah.
over any second.
And we're gonna find out, like Archie Bunker, that she was only 45 years old. You know, like you know, like, that guy was 45 years old. Oh my god, you know.
John's logic
Yeah,
says,
he's always
John,
arguing with me.
I
Yeah,
will argue
and I
Peter
love it.
Parker
I love it.
wasn't a no good rotten kid. He was selfish, and his guilt changed him when he didn't stop the bad guy. But Peter Parker was a good person at his core.
Was he?
He was on track to be a school shooter. Let's be honest.
Yeah, yeah. He was the classic incel.
Really?
The very first page, they're like Liz Allen goes, "Hey, why don't you invite him to a party?" And hey, Pete, you want to come to? Go screw yourself, Flash.
Oh yeah.
And this is another one that gets
The
me.
Chad Flash.
I will stand by this one. Gwen Stacy was a bad girl. Her very first line was, "Hey, that's Peter Parker. He's the only guy in school that didn't give me a tumble." Peter Parker tamed the bad girl and made her a good girl, whereas Mary Jane was always the good girl acting like a bad girl.
That's true.
You know,
That is the one thing I had against Raimi's films, other than like the third one in general, is like Mary Jane was a little off in both of those films. Especially the second one.
little off. I wouldn't have dated
Yeah.
her. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, she
like-
wasn't hot enough, first of all.
yeah, but she was mean and she was miserable.
Yep.
You know, and at the first time of Peter showing, like, dude, I got responsibilities. Well, I'm done with you. I'm gonna go date your hotter friend.
You didn't come to my play. Sorry, your aunt's dying.
Yeah. Never mind the fact that you fail in school, that your aunt is dying, that Dr. Octopus is trying to blow up the world. Never mind. You didn't come to my play. I'm gonna go date your hot friend who happens to be rich. You know what I mean? You were gonna date him anyway. You were just looking for an excuse. You got the hot rich guy. Come on, Mary Jane.
And
You messed up by not dating that Ditkovich girl who's bringing him cake.
Oh yeah, she was great.
No, Ursula. Though she was goals.
Yeah,
Strider, what is happening to your room?
No, you look like you're underwater.
Oh, I think I know why. Some of these lights are LED. I had that problem last time. Hang on, let me turn them off.
No, it looks great.
Okay, thank you.
Strider is single-handedly the most organized person I've ever seen in my life. I am always impressed when I see his room.
Well, it's a little bare now because all the Christmas decorations are gone. That's
How'd that date from like 2 months ago go?
Oh, it went fantastic.
He said, looking away from the camera.
No, that's realized I got a lot of glare going on. No, it didn't. It's not gonna work out. We're a little few different things, but it was wonderful. It was a wonderful time. I had she is the standard by which all dates will now be judged. Now I got to do is find someone who's a little bit more based and red pilled and loves guns a little bit more than she did, but that's perfectly fine.
Nah, man, go for a normie girl. They're the best.
Yeah. I was like, the more I was talking, I was like, yeah, I don't know about that. I was disappointed that it didn't go further, but it was a great foray back into the dating world after 10 years absent from it, and I'm glad I did it. I don't know
the backstory. Like, were you married and divorced, or like were you with nobody?
Ooh,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
First off,
married,
I'm sorry.
divorced,
Here,
was,
any marriage falls apart. Even a fictional one like Peter Parker's and Mary Jane. Oh my God! If my wife was to leave me, or God forbid, worse, how the hell do you date these days?
Like, I just wouldn't. I don't know. Me and Josh talked about this. I'm not.
Tell you whenever I do it. Whenever I find any success in it.
Not to dox you, Strider. How old are you?
35 next month.
Are you serious?
Uh-huh.
I thought you were like 22. You're in great shape.
Oh, thank you.
I'm 38 going on 55.
You can date Dave over here. Or Dan over here. There you go.
I'm 38 going on 55, man.
I'm 56 and I make that oof noise when I get out of bed.
I do too.
You said
Kids will do that too.
Noises.
Dating, I don't know, man. I don't know how people do it these days. Like, I didn't know how I did it in the 20s. I was no good at it.
Yeah.
You're a 25-year-old kid who wants to write the Fantastic Four. You didn't. I just want to play Dungeons & Dragons and write the Fantastic Four in life.
See, what's so funny? I'm doing all of that now that I'm divorced. It's wonderful. I'm playing D&D every other week. I have my thriving comic collection. I'm able to play like Zelda at all hours of the day. It's wonderful.
my brothers, sisters, and their spouses will tease my wife. Oh, how do you like dating a nerd? And she's like, Saturday night he's downstairs pretending to be a wizard. Where's your husband?
You're like this guy. You're like she's like my husband is sitting on a small fortune of assets whenever he dies.
I make sure my wife knows how much my comic book collection is worth. Like, if, I always broke my neck. I came this close to dying. It's like I want her to know, like, you could sell these comics and take care of yourself. Like, my biggest fear is that like I die and she's just like, get rid of this crap.
Yep.
Oh, that would hurt.
Yeah.
And then Von Coleman's got your collection.
I wanted to know
for $50.
Wrecks another car.
And sometimes I wonder, am I being selfish and having like a fortune in comics and we're still paying off the house? Like I actually had like a heartfelt conversation with her. I'm like, am I being a bad husband? Like,
even if you pay off the house, you still got to pay property taxes.
I know you never.
You'll never own it. Yeah.
Give Trump a chance. He says he wants to. He says he wants to start the External Revenue Service.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's fine, but if you don't get rid of the internal revenue, it's just another government agency collecting money that they're going to spend inefficiently. Like,
man,
as long as it has an expiration date, I'm okay. As long as he's like, the minute I'm gone, this thing is coming with me. The External Revenue Service has an expiration date. It's not going to exist anymore. I'm fine with that. No more.
Like, I don't want to pay income tax anymore. Like these people in California, they paid state taxes, and then for a fire department, and then they took that money, gave it to illegal aliens, gutted the fire department, and now illegal aliens were lighting the city on fire. Like, they were literally paying for these people to burn up their homes. Like, if that's not an example of like, you need less government. Government doesn't work. How I was just talking today, like when I was in college, we had to do like government agencies, and I was assigned homelessness in New York City. So that was the red pill for me. I'm like, New York City has like $300 million a year budget to deal with homelessness, and there's still guys bothering me on the subway. Like I according to their own website, there was 30,000 homeless people living in the city. So I'm like, so 3 million divided by 30,000, that's $3,000 a month. That's more at this time. I'm like, these guys could all have apartments in Manhattan.
Yeah, that's like what, 60 grand a year or something like that.
That's money. Like, why are there homeless people? Oh yeah, because if they solve homelessness, all of these people are out of work. So that was it.
You also got to keep in mind that a lot of these people, they don't want to. They don't want help. Poverty is a mindset. Poverty is indeed a mindset as well as an economic and as well as an economic situation. Because you got people who have community in the fact that they have nothing. So because you look at these communities that do have nothing, what do they have? They have a stronger bond with each other. They look out for each other. Well, once you start making more money, you leave that community, and therefore that bond is gone. That support system is gone. And a lot of time with homeless people, they all know each other. They'll probably like steal each other's shoes and stuff, but there's still somewhat of a more understandable, simpler community than they would probably have
mentally
trying to manage anywhere else.
They're mentally take that $300 million a year, buy a plot of land upstate, build a freaking city with a drug rehab, an education center, and like round up all the homeless people and bring them there. I'm like, sorry, you're crazy. You got problems. Once you're pushing people off in the subway and you want to sleep in New York City in the
people on fire.
I'm sorry, I believe in individual will, but it's like, dude, you can't take care of yourself. You need to go to this place, and we'll help you. We'll get you off of drugs. We'll give you, I'm not a bet. There's mentally people like we can't take care of them. What good is the government?
Yep. Logic says that Peter Parker was not a bad person, John.
Yeah. I don't think he would have became a school shooter, but just imagine. Okay, so
what if he was homeless though?
But just imagine his Uncle Ben lived. So what was the next thing? He tried to make money off his powers. What would he have done? Become a stuntman? I don't think like without that guilt of Uncle Ben, like what would he have done? Like he was on his way to cashing in the easy route. And my backup story, the suit, shows like what happens with the easy route. You know, he was
Mhm.
given information and he chose the easy way. You know, like
Mhm.
that's, you know, and that's what I like about Superman. I was just talking to this
Not to
today
mention
with my
Superman.
partner. Like with Superman, I think like Superman, he has the ultimate temptation.
Mhm.
Like this is the most powerful being on the planet. If you know, I don't care if you have kryptonite. If Superman is portrayed properly, as soon as you start opening up that lead box, he starts feeling weakness. Boom, he takes off at light speed and then zaps you with heat vision from a half a mile away. You know what I mean? Or, you know, fuses that lead box shut. You know, he can overcome. You're a magician. As soon as Zatanna starts talking sideways, boom, heat vision, Zatanna, you toast. You know what I mean? Like, unless you're as fast as him, he's unbeatable. So you're telling me, like, in the deep dark of his mind, it's like the One Ring. Take over the world. Kill that bad guy. Rule these people. Rule them with the velvet hand. You know, but the thing about Superman is his virtue and his will and his desire to be good is just as powerful as his temptations.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what I like about Superman. Like if Superman is just a robot who's just programmed to do good, then he's as boring as all his detractors say he is. But,
Oh yeah.
But Superman, you know, he's super, but he's a man. He has lustful feelings for Lois Lane. You know, like Superman, he could just go down and get Sydney Sweeney. You're gonna say if Superman really exists, but he controls all that. You know what I mean? And I think that's important.
Yeah, I think people think virtue and good are boring because they haven't tried. This is another I think C.S. Lewis quote where he's like, you don't really know how hard it is to be good until you try.
Right.
And the thing about a hero isn't boring. They are consistently dynamically opposing evil in the world and in themselves. Like there's always a storm
the more power
of
you
evil.
have, the more temptation you have. Superman has the ultimate. Superman has super temptation.
And yeah, that's the best way to put it. Like that was, and like I said, C.S. Lewis. I mean, that's what he used the archetype of Christ. He was like, you know, Christ. He said Christ is the greatest realist because he's the only person in the story to oppose the greatest temptations. And like that's why I got so mad when people would always make Professor X like a bad guy. It's like this man can control anyone on the planet instantly, and every day he chooses not to. It's like he's not a bad guy just because
his vision could be easily achievable by him overcoming your will.
Exactly.
He doesn't. His vision is people choosing to live together and choosing to live in peace.
Yeah, he's the ultimate anti-tyrant.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was why I love like a Jordan Peterson concept that wrinkled my brain quite a bit was saying there's no virtue in being weak. There's no virtue in being harmless, because when you have the capacity to hurt, when you're like learning martial arts, or you're learning how to use a weapon, if you know how to do that, there's no virtue in not using that. Otherwise you're just harmless. If you don't know how to defend yourself, if you're not strong, if you are not
every time I buy a gun, I become more virtuous.
Yeah, I would say so.
So there's the idea of not using
I would take that to the logical conclusion. Yeah, because the more ability you have to hurt people, the more ability you have to exert your will forcefully on someone else, whether through violence or coercion or one thing, and you don't do it. There's the virtue. There's the virtue by saying I have the capacity to hurt you and to do great harm, but I choose not to. That's not, otherwise you're just harmless.
Like, yeah, and like that's the feminist critique, is that the men should just be good all the time. It's like, yeah, everybody should be, but you don't realize, no one realizes how hard that is. And the thing is, like, we used to have a word for guys like Andrew Tate and those kind of guys, and it wasn't men, it was brute. It was you weren't a man, you weren't masculine unless you kept yourself under control for the good of others.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like he has at all.
Well, like, hey, like John, like this is a good segue, man. Like you had the balls to name your character the Patriarch. Yeah, and he embodies everything we just talked about. He's a family man, and like
I wanted a character to be positive masculinity. Now, confession time. When I made the Patriarch, it was, wouldn't it be funny to get all these blue-haired, crazy leftists crazy? And I was like, I'm going to call him the Patriarch, and he's going to have he's going to be super muscular and super strong, and he's going to have the male gaze, like instead of telescopic vision. And, and me and my friend were laughing about it, and I was like, this is the character. And then two reasons. I started to really like the character, and then I started to realize any character created out of spite, I don't think has lasting, like if you're going to make a comic book to make fun of the wokies, and you didn't make it for 5 years, it's too late. Like, it should have came out already.
What are you talking about? I'm Not Starfire is gonna be a staple for all comic books.
I forgot about that, man.
But you know what I mean? Like if you're gonna, like right now, a comic book making fun of Biden, too late.
The date itself,
comic book making fun of whatever the woke stuff.
Trudeau.
It should have came out 5 years ago when it was announced. That's all I'm saying about that. It's too late. It's dated. So I was like, I'm gonna change the page. So I wanted to I like this guy. So he's a father. He's you don't know it yet because I didn't tell his origin, but he was an EMT. So he was a good guy before. And it's funny that you mentioned Andrew Tate, because his partner when he's an EMT is going to be modeled after Andrew Tate.
Nice.
It's going to be like two versions of masculinity. And he's a good guy. He's a father. He loves his wife. He wishes he could spend every moment with his babies and his kids, and and also at the same time, like he teaches his kids, like you didn't really see it in the first issue. There's just only so much room. But when he gets home on the farm, his rule is no powers. Like his kids don't have powers. Powers aren't, they're not mutants. It's not genetically and everything like that. So his kids don't have powers. And that's one of the things, like kids are like, am I going to be able to fly someday? And he's just like, well, even if you can't, you still could do this. You can still play guitar. You could, so when he's doing his work around the house, he doesn't use powers. And like every once in a while he's human, he'll slip and, and then his daughter be like, Dad, no powers. Nope. Keep himself grounded, and I like that. Like he loves his wife. Him and his wife have like nicknames that they have for each other, like sexy nicknames when the kids aren't around.
No, that's adorable.
You know what I mean? Because they want to be with each other, as a happily married, couple, you know what I mean? And there's a reason they have 7 kids, and he, I was saying earlier, like they want to play Dungeons and Dragons, but Dad's always gone off and doing superhero missions. So like, oh, can we play? Dad's home. So there's going to be an issue where he's playing Dungeons and Dragons with the kids, and then it's going to be like them dressed up as knights and fighting monsters, stuff like that. I just like that. I like the idea of if he's a good father, not this 90s dysfunctional family where Dad's an idiot. And he just slams the door when there's an argument, and then where did you go? I don't know. He's never coming home. Unfortunately, Dad's always leaving, but they all know he's a good guy doing good stuff. You can't predict when the meteor is going to attack, and Dr. Octopus is going to rob the bank.
Well, and not to change subjects, but because I've got both of you here, Strider, you're clearly a man of culture. You're a Lord of the Rings fan.
Oh, me too. Yeah,
and. I'm not trying to open up a huge box here or stir the pot. I mean, I do like stirring the pot, but I find, me personally, I find this to be a breath of fresh air, what you're trying to do, John, because especially, it's not just indie comics in general now, but especially indie, the idea of grandiose storytelling, of canon that matters, and basically just the Western canon seems to be lacking even in indie comics.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'm not trying to start a whole discussion here, but it's hard to find anyone who really wants to go into that.
Well, I think there's a couple of problems with indie comics. It's dominated by artists, and that's fine.
Yeah, I agree.
But one of the things that got my hackles up was when one of the artists was like, "Writers are a dime a dozen," and then put out one of the most unreadable comic books I've ever read.
That's true.
That just irked me so bad. I was like, oh man. But I also don't want to wait 3 years between issues. I don't remember. I'm sorry. I got too much going on. I'm worried about my mortgage. I got a stressful job. And then I paid $35, and then I'm paying another $35, and then I find out 6 issues. So what is that? That's $240 for.
I could be
story.
dead by then.
Yeah, and it took 12. So I want to do the opposite. I wish I could make comics faster. You know, maybe I'll be able to pick it up the pace. We'll see. But one thing I can do is give you a complete story in every issue. So that's my pledge, is that every issue is going to be a complete story. If I have a longer story, I'll add more pages and then I'll have to charge more. Let's be realistic. But I want you to be like, oh, wow, I got number 3. And it was a satisfying 2 stories, 2 complete stories. But also I'm leading somewhere. Like issue 10 is going to be the end of the first arc. You know what I mean? So I'm hoping that you're going to pick up these Easter eggs. So it rewards the long-time reader, but it also rewards the short-time reader. And at $10, I think that's fair for what I'm doing. I mean, it's more than a regular comic, but I don't have the machine like Marvel in DC.
Well, they're charging $5 for
I
something
know.
that sucks.
And
I'm picking them up. I'm like, this is nothing. Like these feel. I feel like I could wipe my ass with this. Like this is.
Well, what's worse is it was Image that alerted me to that. Man, I went to pick up a Spawn comic. I hadn't done it in years, and I was like, 8 pages of this is ads. Like, what am I paying for? And and nothing happened. It was like
8
nothing
pages
happened.
Then in the middle, it was a double-page spread this way of just a picture of Shaft.
If McFarlane had drawn it, I would have bought it.
I was like, oh man,
I kind of miss ads because I've gone through some of the old stuff that I have. Like I've gotten some Daredevil and some Silver Surfer, some Fantastic Four that I just found in comic shops in Vegas or actually I found a few in an antique shop, just kind of random. There's a lot of good shit down there, a lot of Punisher stuff.
Nice.
But going through it, like this is a whole world that I didn't even remember. All these advertisements, all these different products that people would. It's a whole different culture. It's a whole different language, almost whole different like sentence structure. It's so fascinating that I wasn't here.
This is where I find out neither one of you read my comic because it's got ads in it.
Yeah,
I told you, John. It's behind Phenomenova right now.
Yeah, let me know what you think.
I don't mind ads. Like I really don't care as long as it's.
But
as long as it's not.
You'll see what I'm talking about.
It's
classic ads, spoofs. They're not for real products.
Oh, okay, that's funny.
So and that's one thing I just having so much fun. I just talked to Brian Bow. He's doing another ad in issue 2. Brian Bow did an ad in one. I'd like to have the same 3 guys, Fabrizio Aiello do an ad and
hilarious.
But you'll see. Like there's going to be an ad for cartoons. Remember, like the Saturday morning lineup on NBC. So Brian Bow is going to make up crazy cartoons. I think
we're doing my artist Josh. We're doing one for our video game that we're putting out. We really want to make it look like the old 90s kind of ones with like the characters way up here and then the screenshots are in the background. Like there's something like about like those old ads that were just really cool because like you had to grab people's attention. Like they weren't going to see it on a screen wherever they went. Like you had one chance in that one page of that one book to get them to see it, to buy it.
And speaking of ads, this is one of the reasons why I don't like CGC slab in comics.
Oh,
because, okay, so I slabbed my issue of whatever. I'm just going to buy the trade paperback or the omnibus or whatever. You don't get the letters page. You don't see the ads. You don't see the Boltons and Stan's soapbox. That's all part of the comic.
The toys,
I love all that. Like you read in Fantastic Four, then you see this gorgeous Michael Golden Micronauts ad, and you're like, oh my god! When you get the reprint in the trade paperback, you don't get that. There's a website that you could go to look up all these old beautiful ads. Like now, everybody seems to be into the old Bill Willingham Dungeons and Dragons ads.
Oh yeah, like the pure artwork of that,
Yeah,
I've been a fan of him since I saw those ads. Even before I knew his name. I love all that stuff. And when you slab it, all you really have is a big plastic trading card. That's not a comic book anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like buying books that I can't read.
Right.
It just seems completely counterintuitive. Because like I was saying before, half the fun of comics is, especially the older comics, it's a window into a world that I never knew. Because I'm a child in the 90s, but I didn't read comics until actually in the past few years.
So what got you into comics then?
Oh, good question. The first books I ever read, because I was always fascinated by X-Men, but I never read them because my mom was always very particular about what we'd read, and I don't hold that against her at all. But the only ones I was really allowed to read or allowed to buy without any kind of scrutiny was GI Joe, because it's military. What's the worst that can happen for military? The
Yeah,
Baroness is skin tight.
nothing bad happens in the military.
The Baroness is skin tight suit, notwithstanding. But for the most part, it was harmless. I love the old Larry Hama GI Joes, and I'm trying to find them and collect them again. They're just so fun. They're so much fun.
Great art too.
I was kind of a military geek back in elementary school, but I think what got me back into comics, what got me into comics and reminded me of some of the old the used bookstores that I would go into all the time, was the MCU, the beginning of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it made me remember all of those heroes that I'd see these issues, and I'd love to go back in time and pay a quarter for an issue like it was back in the day. I was like, huh, that's interesting. But I remember always really liking. I really always liked the design of Daredevil. The covers of Daredevil always jumped out at me, and so did the X-Men. And so only recently now I'm collecting, and I think in the past 5 years I've collected a lot of Daredevil not omnibus, but some of the collected Daredevils from like where Ed Brubaker and
good
and
stuff.
all them. It's good stuff, and I love it. And I was like, Daredevil, okay, I need there's other people that I can investigate, and also all these old school comics, they're pretty cheap if I can find them. But unfortunately, most of where I look, I can't find GI Joe. Like because I'm in Houston, and I've looked at there's like 2 or 3 comic book shops around here. I can't find Larry Hama GI Joe anywhere. But I went down to Galveston and found a whole section of GI Joe.
Did you see they just crowdfunded like a
like 300 or something? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like hardbacks too, man.
Yeah, it was a big hardcover.
Go. Okay, I've always wanted a Larry Hama omnibus, and I would love that.
Can you say that 3 times fast?
Larry Hama omnibus, Larry Hama omnibus, Larry Hama omnibus. Ah, damn.
What's up, Arza? Can't hear you. This is the reason we even invited John on, Arza, and you're ruining it.
Can't hear you, Peach.
Nothing.
So for some reason, my stupid thing changed my default microphone.
It did that to mine too.
But I fixed it before I came on.
Yeah, StreamYard is like, let's choose the worst input option.
Oh no, it was my computer that did it.
Oh, okay.
Like when I got home, my computer was making sound from my monitor my laptop, despite the fact I have a headset plugged in.
Mm-hmm. I fixed that for a woman today, and because I work in MSP, and her monitors were trying to outsource the output, the speakers for some reason, whatever.
And now my monitor's glitching out. For no
John's
reason.
the only one here with a real job.
Does student count as job?
No, it's occupation.
Fair.
What are you in Europe?
Where are you guys? You said you were in Houston. I'm in New York. Where are you two guys?
South Carolina.
Okay.
Kentucky.
Can tell by his accent.
Ooh, you're more southern than I am, dude. I was on with Vaughn, I think a night or two ago, and he I think he guessed I was from Arkansas. I was like, no, man, like it's. But then again, I guessed he was from New York, and apparently he's from New Jersey. But it all sounds the same to me.
Well,
I know. Yeah,
Jersey's just the worst New York.
Pretty much, yeah.
Jersey's the armpit of the northeast.
That's okay. We were first in the war and last out, so I can't say anything. See ya, Arza. Like when the light comes back on, there's like some dead girl behind you.
I don't know what happened. I turned my light on, and now there's like green lines on my monitor that were not there 2 minutes ago. I have no idea what just happened.
Let me pull this up real quick. We've gone this whole
still my monitor.
All right. Share this window.
Oh,
Can you
lovely.
guys see that?
Oh, that's my campaign page.
Yeah, it is working. Okay, cool. So I'm sure everybody's familiar with this, but if you're not, or if you haven't backed it yet, you need to. And I don't want to drag you down there, John. But do you want to give a pitch at all?
Sure.
Feel free.
So this is Heroic Tales #1. This is the campaign page on Fund My Comic. Fund My Comic is going to be my home from now on. I did the best on Fund My Comic. I did okay on Kickstarter, and Indiegogo was just a waste of time.
Mm.
So I'm done with Indiegogo. I will also do Kickstarter because $1,000 to me is a big deal. But anyway, so this is Fund My Comic. Luke Stone's a great guy. He's the owner. He's one of us. He's a comic book creator. Luke's going, was instrumental in making my comic, so I feel loyal to him. But okay, so that's Fund My Comic. But it's a 40-page comic with 2 stories, a letters page, and then ads. Now, when you say ads, people go like, "What?" It's goofy ads. There's like a Hostess company ad, a Sea Monkeys ad, and like a Fun Factory ad, So I'm kind of having fun with the old school ads, and I want to do that for every comic. So, but what it is, it's the first appearance of the patriarch. The name of the story is called Father's Day, and it opens. He's already, like, I didn't make this clear enough, but he already spent all night fighting another supervillain, and he's trying to come home, but he just can't get home, because this happens and that happens and he's trying to get home for Father's Day. The family is waiting for him.
An Odyssey story.
What's that?
Like the Odyssey,
Like
story.
the Odyssey, absolutely.
Like Falling Down, except not horrible.
So by the time he makes it home, the family's already asleep. You know what I mean? It's like Father's Day, but but he's a good guy. You know what I mean?
At least he doesn't have to spend it grilling.
And it's funny because
is he gonna get a tie?
one of the things he goes hunting in this issue, and a couple of people are like, why did he have to go hunting? Like, because he has to feed his family. Like,
Because fuck you, that's why. Why not?
Those hamburgers that you bought in the supermarket, somebody killed the animal down the line. He just skips the middleman. But the patriarch, he's got 7 kids. He's got a wife, and they homeschool, they homestead. He does everything on his own. Why? You don't know this yet, but I've already talked this a few times. He got his powers in public, so people know his secret identity. He's like Reed Richards, and I don't want to spoil. I almost spoiled something, but in a world where there's Dr. Octopuses and Green Goblins, you hide your family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, can you imagine if people knew Bruce Wayne, was Batman? What would the Joker do to anybody who's slightly related to Bruce Wayne, or any girl that Bruce? So that's why they're in hiding, and they make the best of it. But that's also going to cause problems down the line, because when you got a 19-year-old son, he's just like that. There's no, he wants to go to college. He wants to have friends. He wants to meet chicks and stuff like that. Do you let your kid go? Because you're a good dad, you say yes, but you know what I mean? Like, that's going to cause problems down the line. So I like to think there's positive family drama. They're not just the perfect family singing Kumbaya too,
Yeah.
You'll see the kids fight with each other. They're normal. They're normal kids.
The biggest issue I see there is the implication that kids these days want to do anything.
It's easy for them when they're on a mountain, hide away. They don't have internet access. The kids don't have cell phones. They homeschool. So these kids probably don't even know about cell phones. You know what I mean? And they farm. But that's just it. Like, the daughter is really into horses, and they have horses. You know what I mean? So why would you want to spend her day on, I don't know, TikTok, when she's literally outside riding horses and feeding the horses, and you know what I mean? Where are we going?
I got you.
And then if you scroll down, you can see that's Renzo. Renzo Rodriguez is my artist. Daniel De La Silva does the coloring for the Patriarch story. And then the backup story called the backup story was Unheroic Tales, and it's the story of a villain, and that story is called The Suit. It's the origin story of I already spoiled that. He becomes the mayor of Science City. So issue 2, you're going to see a 40-year-old Lucius Kane with, with white in his beard, because that story was set in 1999. Lucius Kane's origin was 1999. The Patriarch's origin was in 2000. So, so you'll see them at similar ages next issue dealing with each other. And the Patriarch knows all about Lucius Kane, but he's a good guy. He can't just go and beat up the mayor. You know what I mean? He needs proof. And Lucius Kane is one of these villains, literally has the devil in his pocket. He's crafty. He doesn't leave any evidence. So the Patriarch is just biding his time. Like, yeah, he could go in and beat the crap out of him, but he's not the Punisher. And that is going to be another story in issue 3. I'm going to introduce a Batman Punisher type character, and how does the Patriarch react to that guy in his city?
Oh yeah.
So if you scroll down, you can see the covers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So this is the main cover. This is Renzo Rodriguez's cover. I just love that. That was so cool to see that. $10. I don't think that's that expensive for a crowdfunded comic. 2 complete stories, 40 pages. I think that's fair. Wow. We're already almost 50% done with issue 2. The backup story is complete. Now we're working on the Patriarch story. It's scroll down, you'll see some of the variant covers. This is Pat Broderick. Pat Broderick just worked with Mike Barron on Bronze Star, but Pat Broderick, he did Firestorm, he did Captain Atom, he did Captain Marvel, just a legendary comic book artist.
How'd you meet these guys?
I had Mike Barron on my channel a few times, to the point like where Mike Barron messages me, "Happy birthday, John." I'm like, Mike Barron is messaging? So I asked Mike, I'm like, is it possible to get Pat Broderick to do a cover? He goes, let me ask him. So he introduced it, and Pat was like the coolest guy. He was just like, "Oh yeah, sure." It's like the closest to meeting what's his name, the actor from Roadhouse, the older cowboy guy.
Oh yeah,
Sam
Elliott?
Sam Elliott. Yeah.
That's how cool he is. So I love this cover. So scroll down. This is the back cover. If you get a comic book printed, by default it comes with an ad for the printer, and it's cheaper. And I'm like, I don't want that. I want everything. This is my first comic book. So I was like, what am I going to put on the back cover? So I was like, let me get an image that encapsulates everything that the Patriarch stands for. And I couldn't. It's his family, his home. So that's all his kids. That's his wife. That's the farm. He's got the baby in his. That's everything he wants. I just love that image. If I never make another comic book again, I could be like, I was part of the creation of this image. I just love that so much. And then people were like, I want that as the front cover. And I'm like, I never thought of that. So you could get this as the front cover also. But man, I love this.
I really like the kind of classical or Roman aesthetic you get here with like the wreath and then like the pillars.
Right. Well, his name was the Patriarch, and the Patriarch is a Greek term, and so I was like, and then like that was part of the whole like, men always think of the Roman Empire, like back when I was little. So like he's got to have like a Roman theme. So I gave him purple because the
royalty
is purple, gold, the laurel wreath, because his name is Patriarch. So I wanted to have like this Roman Greek thing to it, and then white. His costume is white because he's good, And I wanted to have his silhouette similar to Superman, but if you read the comic, you'll see that his powers are vastly different. That's part of the thing is the bad guy figures out how his powers actually work, so things might be a little bit more rough if the return of the villain. But I just love this. I got a story for the personality for every one of these kids. The wife has a story. Like I would like to do like how they actually met. She couldn't stand him. She thought he was nerdy. He was a nerdy little skinny twerp when they met, and she was this gorgeous hot chick, and she was all into music and everything. She kind of looked like Susie Sue and way out of his league. And then they just started talking. I have this whole story in my head already. I didn't realize that. They went to a party, and David Bowie came on, and they just started talking. She's like, "You're into Bowie?" And that became you know. And then David Bowie died, and I was like, oh man, now people are gonna think, but whatever.
Yeah.
But I have like all these stories, like, you know, of what's gonna go on. I have one story, the girl there in the green, the youngest daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I have a story, but like, I don't know. I think it might be too mean. You know, I don't know. But I'll leave that alone. But let's scroll up. I don't want to start spoiling what's going to happen to
Well,
the
as long
kid.
as she doesn't run into Neil Gaiman, it'll be all right.
Yeah, I know. That's like the third time.
There's not necessarily anything wrong with having bad things befall characters that you care about. You got to tread
Well,
very, very
otherwise it's
lightly.
boring.
Yep.
Was that?
Otherwise it's boring.
Yeah.
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 It's just
Because
keep
that's not how
scrolling.
life
There's more
works.
covers.
Yeah.
Like in issue 2, I'm introducing a new character called Mary Sue.
Oh
And,
yeah, I've heard this story.
And Mary Sue, she is a goof on the Mary Sue concept. Mary Sue is perfect. You know what I mean? But what is perfect? Perfect is really a subjective term. Like what you may think is, oh, that girl's perfect. I'm like, that girl's perfect. You know, she's got blonde hair. I like redheads. And then as the chat's like, that girl's not perfect. She's got big boobs. I like medium boobs. You know, whatever. You know, so perfect is not a, you know, but we always say that's perfect. So Mary Sue is perfect, but she's perfect in the eyes of her grandmother. And what's perfect in the eyes of your grandmother is not what's perfect in the eyes of your buddy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So Mary Sue is a good religious girl, good student, PhD. She doesn't drink. She goes to college and she's still a virgin. You know what I mean? And she gets teased. You know, that doesn't sound like perfection. So I'm kind of goofing on that. But
Sounds like Master Swag King.
That isn't the truth.
But you know, if you could scroll down to show the other covers while
Sure.
I'm trying to find something. But I'm so bad about spoilers.
I'm pretty fond of this one.
Wow. I think what do you call that? Like a throwback cover?
Yeah, that's Michael T. Gilbert. Michael T. Gilbert is famous for Mr. Monster. I first saw Michael T.
You got the comics code stamp up there. I love it.
Mhm.
Michael T. Gilbert. He started as far as I became aware of him, he was the inker for Pig Craig Russell on the Michael Moorcock's Elric comics.
Oh,
So
wow.
I was like, I love this. So I followed P. Craig Russell. I followed Michael T. Gilbert, and he did Mr. Monster. And Mr. Monster is kind of a humorous, tongue-in-cheek comic. So I contacted him, and I sent him the script, and he was just like, he loved this insect theme. So he was like, what if they're at a picnic?
Yeah.
So the only input I had is, put his wife as a damsel in distress. So this. I'm big on, I want the covers to be representative of what actually happens in the cover, but this is an exception to the rule. This is, a throwback to Silver Age.
Yeah.
I just love it. And you can see Mr. Monster's on his son's t-shirt.
I gotta say, the wife in the back, she looks shirtless. Because the
She did
shirt
look
is
shirtless
skin
one day, yeah.
Yeah, well, she's got a shirt. He colored her yellow, and then if you could see the yellowing goes out of the lines, that's such old school Silver Age.
Yeah, it reminds me of Archie.
Yeah. And you can see, like, don't forget she's got scars. I'll explain that story at some point too, how she got scarred up.
Oh.
Yeah. If you scroll to the top of the farm picture
Right here.
you can see she's got scars on the left side of her body.
Oh yeah.
I saw that. And I didn't know if that was
Shadows.
like a past thing or if she was getting like powers or something of that. I was curious of that.
I mean, there's a reason why they're hiding out in the mountains.
Okay.
Yeah. So keep scrolling down. There's more to show. So this is the first page, the interior art. I mean, I just wanted people to know, like, so many times in indie comics, you get a great artist to do the cover, and then you get like Moskowitz doing the inside. And you're like, oh, man.
Yeah.
So I wanted you to know that I'm not doing a bait and switch. So this is Renzo's artwork, and right there on that page, there's already, Easter eggs for future stories. You know what I mean? Like you see dirigibles. There's that statue in the background. Like I'm setting up that this is a fictional city, but like there's going to be continuity to the city. And then like this guy's dressed, and it's funny because when Bill Williams started lettering it, he goes, what year is this comic set in? I'm like,
Yeah, 'cause, like the gangsters.
He was like, well, it's like
Cigarette
art. I
girls.
was like, yeah. So I put 20, I put July 16th, 2024, just in a caption on the top. But I always thought, like, Gotham City, people dress up like clowns and become villains, or other people dress up like the Penguin and commit crimes, and other people, ask clue questions or dress up like a cat. But they don't do it in Baltimore, and they don't do it in Seattle. Why Gotham City? And I always thought, like, there's something wrong with Gotham City. And some of the writers touch on that, and it's just what happens in the DC universe. Either one of them is fine for me, but there's something wrong with Science City. Yeah, so that's going to be a theme going through the comic. Some guys just wake up, dress like 30s gangsters, and commit crimes. That's literally Doc Boss Moxie's origin. But his origin is tied to the origin of the city. And then you see that statue looming over. That's going to be a major story. Is it an Easter egg if I tell you it's an Easter egg? I don't know. Dirigibles are a major part of future. Something about retro, Art Deco and superheroes.
Especially Art Deco. Yeah, Art Deco really goes great with that, with comic books.
Yeah,
it really does. Art Deco needs to be way more Art Deco in every piece of fiction, in my opinion.
And then you could see to the right, that's Mike Gustavich's cover.
Yeah, it's a good one.
So, Mike Gustovich he created the Justice Machine, and he drew I think he inked the Justice League for a while. So he's another legendary comic book artist.
Nice.
And that has the full reveal of the bad guy. So I love that. You got a T-shirt you could get.
That's a cool design.
Yeah, it took me so long to find a place that will actually do that. I just love. You could get a challenge coin.
Oh, yeah. I know you're having some trouble with that. You got everything going like squared away with that.
Yeah,
Nice.
I made if you scroll down, I made like a small coin, but they took forever, and I thought I wasn't going to get them in time for the campaign. So I ordered these expensive challenge coins, and then I forgot to put them on the campaign. So I added them on. You could get trading cards. So I added everything onto this. So when the campaign was over, and then when Kickstarter was over, and Indiegogo was over, I brought everything and mushed, because I had this on this site, this on this site, and this on, and I think that was a tactical error. Some people wanted all three covers, but that meant they were paying $30 in shipping.
Ooh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So I was like, oh man, so I brought everything over to one site, and I still get sales once in a while, but
Nice.
I think with issue 2, I'll have like, here's a package, get all the covers, so you don't have to pay for all that shipping. Here's a package, get all the covers, plus, I'll try to keep it as simple as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But I got trading cards, and it's going to be 16 trading cards for the next issue, because just a buttload of characters.
I really like this here. The vision of his face.
Yeah, that's
really cool.
Peter Parker with the Spidey sense,
Yeah.
But that's what he's doing. He's up in the air, and he literally, I call it clairsentience. That's the name of that power. It's not telescopic vision. It's not X-ray vision. It's some people like it's astral travel. Not really. He releases his senses, and his senses travel at the speed of thought. So all 5 of his senses. So if that's one of the things he does. Like at 12 noon, if he's not home, he sends his senses to check on his wife. So at 12 noon, his wife always goes like this and kisses the air, because he could literally feel her kiss, because all 5 of his senses are
cool.
He could smell her hair. She can't feel it, but she knows he's there. You know what I mean? So that's and then he'll check up on the kids. So, the kids tease each other. Dad's watching us right now. And that's going to be a problem when one of the kids moves to the city.
Oh,
friends are going to be like, "What's your dad watching us?" Right? You know what I mean? Like stuff like that. So but when he does it, he's vulnerable. He doesn't have his 5 senses right now, so he's flying blind. You know what I mean? His body is just going in the direction that he was flying, so he has to be high up. Make no mountains, or he's landing in a field where he's not going to get hit by a car. You know what I mean? So it's dangerous for him to do that. And I wanted him to have super senses, but like Superman, there's no consequences to his powers. He could use his telepathic vision. To me, like, it's almost like Superman. Why are you going on a date with Lois Lane? There's somebody somewhere in danger that you can hear. You know what I mean? Well, the Patriarch, his powers are exhausting, so he needs to rest. He can't use his powers like you could see he's straining over here. This scene I wanted to show you, his powers aren't like Superman. Like he picks up the car, but he's not really picking up the car. He has telekinesis. So he's using telekinetics to move the car and to fix the hood, you know, and to use it finessely like this strains him more. It's easier to bash something than to fix something. You know?
Yeah, that's cool.
So and then, you know, he's dealing with the fame, people posing for selfies and talking, and it's Father's Day, so he's talking to the father. He feels bad. The guy just crashed his car on Father's Day. So, hey, let me help fix the car, you know. And then he takes off. That was just the first 5 pages.
You know, I think I need to ask the question that's on everybody's mind.
Sure.
Will these get delivered?
They got delivered in November.
Yeah.
I was
he's on top of that.
I was making a big deal that after everything I went through, breaking my neck, that my comic was still going to be on time. And then when I got the physical prints, there was a really bad mistake. So I had to fix the mistake, and then that pulled it from the line and put it at the bottom line. So it cost me 3 weeks.
That's not bad.
Everybody says it doesn't matter, but it bothered me because I'm technically late. But it's like 3 weeks late isn't late. Yeah, technically it's
that's late. Not late at all.
Yeah, that's not
comparatively.
We're talking about like a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 5 years. That's a bit of a different story. But,
but I wanted the bragging rights to say I still broke my neck and my comic was on time.
Nice.
John's
like, I will hand deliver them myself. No, I remember.
I fulfilled it myself. I sat in this chair. I got my printer over here, and I put them in the boxes, taped them up to the point where that's all I did. I would come home from work, take a shower. My wife would put my dinner right here, and I would eat and fulfill. And then I found out the post office will come to your house and pick up stuff.
Awesome.
So I would put stacks of, Gemini mailers and boxes if they ordered a pint glass and everything at the foot of this garage. And then the post office would come. My wife would hit the button. The garage door would open. The post office guys would. It was great. And after about 3 weeks, when I was done fulfilling, I was like, now what do I do? It was hard to get back into not fulfilling mode.
Yeah, I'm sure. Rest on your laurels.
Got to go back to being an electrician.
I gotta go back to real life. What is this?
I was planning on using vacation time to fulfill the comic, but I was out of work for so long. I used up all my time off. So,
well, fellas, I've got to cut it short here. I've got to go put the kids to bed and all that.
Short. I should have been in bed 15 minutes ago.
Let me tell you. If you haven't backed John's book, you need to. And it's not just for everybody. It's not just I'm not here to shill people's books. Like I try to pick artists that I respect and guys I want to talk to, and guys that are really kind of trying to be pillars in indie comics. John, I wish I could talk to you for a couple of hours, man. I'd love to pick your brain about.
I could talk for a couple of hours. I'm not kind of guy.
Well, I know we'll be on yours next week, but I would like to. Well, that's every guest I bring on here. I would like to sit down for like 8 hours and talk ancient tales, fairy tales, and the Odyssey with you.
I'll talk about all that stuff. I enjoy talking. That's just one of the things. Like I like comic books, I like people, and I like talking. So like my problem is you just say hello to me and 2 hours later,
it's like you're built for YouTube.
It's funny because when I first started, people like, I want to hire you to be like a talk show host on my comic book thing. I was like, okay, cool. Can I quit my job and get paid? Yeah. And then I never heard from it.
Yeah, right.
I got to apologize. I have to bounce now. I forgot my dining hall closes in 10 minutes. That's my bad.
Oh no.
Oh,
hey, thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yep. Yes, I got to go to bed, but I like talking to people. That's why.
Well,
I avoid the drama.
I do too. My artist would kill me if I did not shill our own book real quick. So let me do that.
Looking forward to that one.
Thank you. Apollyon 20XX. Lest we forget, this is volume 2 of the Apollyon 20XX series, a series where evil elites are trying to control the world through a alien metal called Impera metal. And the experiments they have created basically are X-Men. They're called augments, are trying to stop them. It's basically Chris Claremont's X-Men meets Akira. Very apocalyptic, very character focused. We've met our goal here on Kickstarter. The opposite of John, we are doing pretty all right on Indiegogo, and we are doing abysmally on Fund My Comic. But
what's the name of your comic?
Apollyon 20XX.
Oh, I tried to keep up on everything, and I didn't hear it. Send me the link.
I will. It's we went with the Greek title as well.
Oh, you can be on my channel next week, so we'll pull up your campaign. Yeah.
It's 100 pages, black and white, all finished, ready to go. You can get it for $15 physical copy. You can get our entire universe so far, about 400 pages for $20 digital. You can get the Apollyon 20XX catch-up tier, all physical right here. That's about 300 pages for $35, and you can get.
Just so you know, we're not seeing your page on the screen.
Are you not? Oh,
yeah.
What's going on here?
I thought you were going to pop into it.
No, I'm just dumb. Here we go. Allow. I'll be dang. Well, it doesn't like mine, John. It only likes yours.
There you go. It's got taste.
Yeah, it does. Let me see. Let's stop that. Let's present, because if I don't do this, Josh will kill me. He's bigger than me, you see. Huh. You are sharing your entire screen. I don't want to share my entire screen. I am boomering this. I work in IT.
What is your excuse?
I don't know. I'm just dumb. Maybe it's Firefox. Maybe Firefox is just trash.
Oh.
Maybe that's it. Anyway, let me see. Huh. It won't let me select window anymore. I think it only likes. There we go. Now you can see it, right?
Cool.
All right, Apollyon 20XX Kickstarter here. We are funded. However, if we get to 750 on here, we've got some a character card that everybody will get. Indiegogo, we're at 300 out of 500, and like I said, we're doing abysmally on Fund My Comic. Though I do enjoy Luke Stone as well. I think he's a great guy, and he is wonderful at service. So here, when I made a mistake when I set this up, and he was there the day that I contacted him and fixed it.
You can't beat him for customer service.
No, you can't.
I got his phone number, and I called him during a meal, and he fixed my problem. And then he's like, so I could hear the dishes in the background, and I'm just like, so John, how's everything doing? And I'm like all freaking out, like,
yep.
We can't do small talk. We got to fix it. He's like, John, it's fixed. Oh, okay.
I need to have him on. He's an interesting fella.
Yeah.
$10 digital, 100 pages, black and white, finished, ready to go. $15 for the physical. $20 for the digital catch-up bundle. That is 400 pages. That's our entire universe so far. Everything we do is in the same universe, or it can be enjoyed as standalone issues.
Cool.
The catch-up bundle, this is a physical Apollyon 20XX. This is volume 1, volume 2, and the ash can for $35. And the Godfall Universe physical catch-up bundle, this is the ash can, volume 1, volume 2, and Biophile Kolga, which is another book in our universe right here. That's 100 pages, full color, manga sized.
Cool.
So I got that.
Yeah, you got to do the right thing. You got to always be shilling,
Oh yeah, always be AVS, man. So anyway,
Stanley ain't here to do it for us, so we got to do it ourselves.
I'm sorry to cut it short, fellas. I could do this for another couple of hours, but Strider, thanks for coming on, man. John, of course, thanks for coming on. Look forward to being on yours next week, and anytime either one of you guys want to come on and talk, and ours as well. Looking forward to it.
Thanks a lot. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yep. Have a good night, fellas.
Good night.
Thanks,